Welcome back to the deep dive. Today we're going really deep
Okay.
into the stories of the Prophet Ishaq. You might know him as Isaac
Right.
and his son Yaqub, or Jacob. You actually pointed us to this
That's it.
really fascinating account by Dr. Othman Alchemies. And wow, it's packed with
It really is.
details about their lives, lineage, all that.
Yeah.
Our mission today is to unpack the core narratives
Okay.
surrounding these significant figures.
Sounds good.
Now, I think it's important to note
Yeah.
that our exploration today is coming from a specific religious perspective
Yeah.
and historical recounting presented by Dr. Alchemies.
That's true.
So this gives us, rich and detailed view,
Right.
but our aim is to understand the key elements within this
I see.
particular framework.
Absolutely. So let's begin with Ishaq.
Okay.
The account details his quite miraculous birth to Ibrahim. You know him as Abraham.
Right.
At a very advanced age. Apparently, angels themselves delivered this news,
Oh, wow.
which must have been an extraordinary event.
I can only imagine. And his mother, Sarah, was understandably astonished at the idea of having a child. So late in life, especially, considering she had been barren.
Oh, wow.
You can just imagine the sheer surprise and wonder of that moment.
Yeah. The source really emphasizes the seeming impossibility of it all.
Right.
Her advanced age, her previous inability to conceive. It really highlights the power of God, using Sarah's initial disbelief as a backdrop to this divine will.
I see.
So the narrative really underscores that for God creation. Doesn't require any great effort.
Okay, let's unpack this a bit further. Now, when we look at Ishaq's own life,
Yeah.
the source mentions that while he's recognized as a prophet
Okay.
who followed his father Ibrahim's teachings, there aren't a lot of specific details provided about his individual life and his prophetic mission.
I see.
Thinks his primary role in this narrative is as the father of Yaqub.
Oh, that's interesting. That's a key observation. The focus does shift relatively quickly to his offspring. We understand his significance as a link in the chain of prophets, continuing the teachings of Ibrahim. But the detailed narrative really picks up with his sons, Yaqub and Esau, who is also referred to as Isu in the account.
Right, and this is where things take an interesting turn.
Okay.
Because there's a story that many might be familiar with from other traditions, particularly from the books of the people of the book,
Okay.
or, as they're sometimes known, the Bani Isra'il, often referring to the descendants of Jacob, also known as the Israelites in other traditions.
Right.
It's the story about the blessings.
Ah, okay.
So the account we're looking at presents this narrative, noting that some books say that
Right.
Ishaq, blind in his old age, favored Esau, while their mother had a preference for Yaqub.
Right, and the traditional narrative recounts that Ishaq asked Esau, his favored son, to go hunting
Okay.
and prepare a roasted young goat so that he could bestow his blessings upon him. Before he passed, this blessing was considered very significant, carrying spiritual and material implications for whoever received it and their future descendants.
And this is where the alleged intervention comes in, right?
Yes.
The mother, according to this disputed story, supposedly tells Yaqub to take advantage of the situation while Esau is out hunting. She instructs Yaqub to take a young goat,
Okay.
slaughter it, and present it to his father, essentially trying to get the blessing intended for Esau transferred to her preferred son, Yaqub.
So the narrative goes on to suggest
Nah.
that Yaqub, who wasn't as hairy as his brother, even went so far as to wear animal hair
Wow.
to deceive his blind father into believing he was Esau. He then presents the prepared goat to Ishaq, who, believing it to be Esau, supposedly bestows that crucial blessing upon him.
Wow. And then as the story continues, Esau returns with a hunted goat.
Okay.
And the alleged deception is revealed, leading to a lot of tension within the family. But here's where it gets really interesting.
Yeah.
Because our source, Dr. Alchemies, firmly rejects this entire account
He does.
as fabricated and baseless. It's quite a strong stance.
It is a crucial distinction. Dr. Alchemies argues that this version of events paints a deeply negative picture of key figures who are highly revered in their tradition.
Right.
It accuses Yaqub of outright lying and deceit, portrays Ishaq as negligent and easily fooled, and even suggests their mother was involved in betrayal and treachery.
Wow.
Such behavior, the source contends, is completely incompatible with their status as prophets and righteous individuals.
Yeah, it just doesn't align.
So the key takeaway here, is that this source prioritizes the unimpeachable character of these prophets, even if it means dismissing well-known narratives.
Exactly, it just doesn't align with the respect and reverence given to these figures. So with that contrasting view in mind, the account then moves on to a more central narrative.
Okay.
Yaqub's journey to his maternal uncle Laban. Apparently it was his mother who instructed him to go there.
Yes, the source notes that his uncle's name was Laban. It also makes an interesting point that some of these names might not be universally familiar.
Right.
And their precise accuracy isn't the most crucial aspect of this story. They serve more as additional details within the narrative, almost like historical markers.
Right now on his way to Laban in Haran, Yaqub has this really significant dream.
Oh, wow.
Doesn't he? It sounds like a pivotal moment for him.
Indeed, the account describes Yaqub having a vision in which he saw Allah, or God, who made a powerful promise to him. This promise included blessings upon him, the multiplication of his descendants, and the granting of the very land where he was sleeping to him and his future generations.
Wow.
This dream is definitely a key turning point in Yaqub's story.
And Yaqub's response to this dream is quite telling. He marks the stone. He used it as a pillow, doesn't he?
He does.
He sets up a kind of marker to identify this divinely promised place for the future.
Precisely. He placed a mark on that stone so that he would recognize the location. When he returned, furthermore, he named the place Beit El, which translates to House of God, with El signifying God in their language. His intention, according to the source, was that a house of God would eventually be built at this very spot. So this act firmly establishes Yaqub's legacy, not just as a father of a great lineage, but as a foundational figure in the establishment of sacred spaces.
So fast forward, Yaqub arrives at his uncle Laban's place and ends up staying there for quite an extended period. It wasn't just a quick visit, was it?
No, it was a stay that spanned 2 decades.
Wow.
20 years in total. Initially, he asked Laban for the hand of his daughter, Rachel, who was also called Rahel. Laban agreed, but with a condition.
Okay.
Yaqub had to work for him for 7 years.
7 years.
This was a common practice at the time.
But then comes a bit of a twist in the tale, doesn't it?
It does.
After Yaqub completes his 7 years of service, he's given Leah in marriage instead of Rachel.
That's right.
That must have been quite a surprise.
It certainly was. Laban justified this by stating that it was not their custom to marry the younger daughter before the elder. This really gives you a sense of how different family structures and societal norms were back then. It highlights the cultural norms of the time and the potential for unexpected events in these historical narratives.
So what does Yaqub do? He wants to marry Rachel, doesn't he?
He does.
He ends up making another agreement with Laban.
Yes, he agrees to work for another 7 years for the opportunity to marry Rachel, which he eventually does. So he ends up marrying both sisters.
And after marrying Leah and Rachel, Yaqub continues to work for Laban for another 6 years, herding his sheep. And during this whole 20-year period, he's blessed with significant wealth and a growing number of children. It sounds like his time with Laban, despite the initial deception, turned out to be quite fruitful.
It did.
In terms of family and prosperity.
Indeed, the source details the children he had from Leah. 6 sons named Rubel, Shamun, Lawi, Yehuda, Issachar, and Zilun.
And Rachel initially faced infertility, didn't she?
Yes, she did.
This leads to another interesting aspect of the family dynamics.
Yes. Rachel was initially unable to conceive. In response to this, she offered her maidservant to Yaqub. And he had 2 sons with her, named Dan and Naphtali, according to this account. This practice of offering a maidservant in times of infertility was not uncommon in that era.
And it seems Leah, perhaps feeling a bit competitive, also offered her maidservant to Yaqub, resulting in 2 more sons, Gad or Had and Asher. It's quite a complex family tree that's developing here.
It certainly is reflecting the social and familial structures of the time, but the narrative emphasizes that despite these numerous children, Rachel still hadn't conceived. However, the account then states that eventually, Rachel did conceive and give birth to Yusuf, who we know as Joseph, and later to Benjamin.
So after 20 years with Laban, Yaqub decides it's time to return to his homeland, to his father and his brother. And he's amassed quite a bit of wealth during his time there, which he sends ahead as a good omen. That's a nice touch, showing his intentions for a peaceful return.
It signifies his intention for a peaceful return, and perhaps a desire to ease any potential tensions. The narrative then highlights his return to that significant location, Beit El, the place he had marked with the stone after his dream. And it's there that he built Beit al-Maqdis, which is Jerusalem.
And this is where the account connects it to another incredibly important holy site, the Kaaba in Mecca.
Right.
The Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, is quoted as saying that there was a 40-year gap between the building of the Kaaba by Ibrahim and Ismail and the building of Beit al-Maqdis by Yaqub.
That's a fascinating detail. Establishing Beit al-Maqdis as the second mosque established on Earth, it underscores the historical and religious significance of both sites and their connection through the lineage of prophets.
Following Yaqub's return, the narrative mentions the passing of Ishaq sometime later, reportedly at the age of 180, though the source notes that the exact age is known only to God. And we come back to Yaqub's 12 sons.
Yes.
The source clarifies an important point regarding them, and the concept of the tribes, or asbat. There's a distinction being made here, isn't there?
Yes, while Yaqub had 12 sons, the source clarifies that these sons are not considered prophets themselves.
I see.
Not asbat in the sense of being divinely commissioned messengers. This is attributed to their later actions involving Yusuf, specifically their plot against him, throwing him into a well, and then deceiving their father about his fate. Such actions are deemed inconsistent with the status of prophets.
So while these 12 sons aren't considered prophets themselves, the asbat, or tribes, later descended from their offspring.
That's right.
It's a matter of lineage, rather than individual prophethood in this context.
Precisely. And in a really interesting aside, the account mentions that Yaqub was also known as Israel.
Okay.
It explains the meaning of this name. Breaking it down linguistically, El in their language is said to be a name of God, though the source notes that it's not permissible for Muslims to use it as such. Isra means servant.
I see.
So Israel translates to servant of God.
That's a fascinating connection to names like Jibril, Mikhail, and Azrael, which also incorporate El and carry meanings related to their service and proximity to God. It provides a deeper understanding of the name Israel within this religious context.
It does. And the narrative then smoothly transitions to the story of Yusuf, or Joseph, highlighting how his story becomes intertwined with that of his father Yaqub.
Right.
This sets the stage for a whole new chapter in their family's history, one filled with its own set of trials and significant events.
Okay, so let's bring it all together. We've taken a deep dive into the account of Prophet Ishaq, navigated the contested stories surrounding the blessings for his sons, understanding why our source rejects that narrative, and explored the significant journey and a complex family life of Prophet Yaqub, also known as Israel.
We've seen how Yaqub's journey led him back to the Promised Land and the building of Beit al-Maqdis, underscoring his vital place in religious history as the builder of the second mosque on Earth.
Right.
So this act firmly establishes his legacy, not just as the patriarch of a great lineage, but as a key figure in the development of sacred sites.
And this account naturally leads us to the incredibly compelling story of Prophet Yusuf.
It does.
It's a narrative filled with its own trials, tribulations, and ultimately triumphs. It feels like a natural progression from what we've discussed today, and definitely something we could explore in a future deep dive.
Absolutely. Considering the different ways these stories are told and understood across various religious and historical traditions, it leaves you with a thought. What can we learn about the nature of historical memory and the importance of perspective? When we encounter differing accounts of foundational figures and events, it really highlights this ongoing process of interpreting and understanding narratives across time and cultures.
I think that's a great place to leave it. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
My pleasure.
Into the lives of Prophet Ishaq and Prophet Yaqub. Until next time.